Clara had always admired Prophet Macho. His reputation was impeccable. People said he could heal the sick with a touch, restore marriages with a prayer, and perform miracles with just a word. His church, a sprawling complex, had grown in prominence over the years. The air was thick with the fragrance of faith, and every service felt like a touch of heaven. But for Clara, the nagging doubts had started to creep in, especially after that night. Clara had joined the church's prayer team, eager to deepen her connection with God. But when she'd stumbled upon something she wasn't meant to see, her world began to crumble. As she entered the prayer room late one evening, she overheard the church's assistants talking. "She wants us to put more pressure on him," one assistant said, referring to a recent miracle event. "The prophet needs to perform tonight. The sponsors are here. The money's riding on it." Clara froze, her hand clutching the doorknob. The word money echoed in her mind. Was this really about faith, or was it all about sponsorships and business? She moved, the room was silent. Clara froze, her hand clutching the doorknob until a moment. And then another voice spoke. "Tell him to go deeper in his prophecies. People love it when he tells them secrets no one else could know." Clara's heart sank. Prophet Macho was a man of secrets, but it wasn't the divine kind. Clara stepped back quietly, leaving the room unnoticed. That night, the seeds of doubt were planted deep in her heart. For days, Clara couldn't shake off the conversation. She had heard rumors about Prophet Macho's supernatural abilities, but now it felt like a web of lies woven around her. She couldn't go on pretending that everything was fine, not when there was something so dark hidden behind the curtains. One evening, she sat with her close friends in the church's courtyard. There was Esther, a quiet but determined woman, Biye, the sharp-witted one who always spoke her mind, and Emeka, who was more skeptical but had a good heart. They all knew something was wrong, but couldn't quite put their finger on it. "I overheard something," Sheila confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "I think Macho's miracles are all staged. He doesn't heal the sick, he manipulates them. And the people who give him money, he's using them." Clara recounted the conversation she had overheard, explaining the assistant's words in detail. The more she spoke, the more the others seemed to nod in understanding. "We can't just sit here and pretend everything is okay," Biyu said, her eyes flashing with determination. "We need to gather evidence, confront him, and expose him for what he really is." The plan was set into motion. They would gather evidence and confront Prophet Macho in front of the congregation. Clara and her friends began gathering whatever information they could. They infiltrated the prayer room, listened to the assistant's orders, and studied Macho's behavior. Each day, they uncovered more and more inconsistencies in his teachings and actions. Macho's so-called prophecies were vague, designed to apply to anyone and everyone. His miracles were carefully orchestrated and staged with actors. One evening, Clara discovered something chilling: Macho's personal files. Among the papers, she found a letter from a well-known spiritual guide outlining a deal. Macho was paying large sums for supernatural abilities in exchange for wealth and fame. The truth was there, buried under layers of deception, but Clara now had the smoking gun. "It's all a lie," Clara muttered, her voice thick with disbelief. "He's just a businessman. This isn't about faith." As the weeks passed, the tension in the church grew. Prophet Macho was preparing for a major service, the biggest of the year. It was the perfect time to make their move. His assistants buzzed around him, ensuring everything would go according to plan. Clara and her friends could feel the pressure building. If they didn't act now, the church influence would continue to grow unchecked. As Macho entered the church, he was met with applause and reverence. He raised his hands, gesturing for silence, and smiled as if he were the very embodiment of divine power. The crowd fell silent, waiting for his next words. "Tonight, the Lord will move powerfully among us," Macho declared, his voice booming with authority. "The heavens are open and your breakthrough is at hand." But Clara and the others were in position. They could see the cracks in his facade. They could see the man behind the prophet, a man hungry for power, fame, and wealth. Macho continued with his theatrics, calling people to the altar for prayer. As he performed his usual manipulations, Clara's heart raced. She knew this was the moment. This was when they would expose him for who he truly was. Clara stood up from the crowd, her voice cutting through the atmosphere. "Prophet Macho," she called, her tone sharp. "Your time of deception has come to an end." The crowd fell silent. Macho turned, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean? Are you questioning the anointing of the Lord?" Clara stepped forward, her hands shaking but her voice steady. "No, prophet. I'm questioning your lies. You've been using fake prophecies to manipulate people. You've been staging miracles to fool them. And we have proof." At her signal, Young Esther stepped forward, holding up the evidence. Documents and photos that exposed the deals Macho had made with spiritual guides, the fake healings, and the staged miracles. The crowd gasped, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Macho's face went pale. "No, you don't understand," Macho stammered, his once confident voice cracking. I did it all for the glory of God. I thought I was helping people." So as the crowd turned on him, Macho became frantic. His assistants scrambled to control the situation, but it was too late. People were shouting, some in anger, others in confusion. "She's a fraud," someone yelled. "He's been lying to us." Another voice cried, "We've been duped." Macho's facade cracked completely. "No," he cried, his voice filled with desperation. "I am the chosen one. The miracles are real. The healing is real." But the people no longer believed him. His lies had been exposed, and there was no way to spin the truth back into their favor. Clara and the women stood their ground. "Confess, Prophet Macho," Clara demanded. "Tell them the truth about who you really are, the truth about where your so-called powers come from." Macho stood there, his face pale and his hands trembling. Finally, with a sigh of resignation, he lowered his head. I did it all for the fame and fortune," he admitted. "I sought out a spiritual guide, a priestess from the Marine Kingdom. She gave me the powers you see, the miracles, the prophecies. None of it came from God." The crowd was stunned into silence. The man they had revered, the prophet they believed could heal and deliver, was nothing more than a fraud. The truth hung heavy in the air. Clara's heart pounded as the police arrived, pulling Macho from the stage. He was escorted away, his once loyal followers left in shock and disarray. But as Macho was led away in cuffs, Clara stood tall, a sense of victory swelling in her chest. The truth had won, and the reign of deception was over.